Dana here, and this is Let's Watch with the Ann Arbor Film Festival. Every year, talented filmmakers from all over the world aim to take part in our local film fest. Sometimes the talent isn't far from home as locals make their mark on this internationally renowned annual event. Joining me is Andrea Eis, a filmmaker bringing us on a visual journey through mythology with her film, Penelope's Odyssey. Welcome to the show, Andrea.
Thank you.
So first, if you could just tell me kind of your experience, your background with the Ann Arbor Film Festival.
Well, I first found out about it when I was in undergraduate school, and after I graduated, I sent off my first film to the film festival and did get in. It was a film called I Always Squint in the Sun. That was in 1981. And then I had another film in 1983, Bedroom Dinner Slides, which I made with Erica Suderberg and Lauren Zuckerman, and we were accepted that year too. So.
Have you ever done anything besides being a filmmaker in it? Have you volunteered or done anything like that, or been just a viewer even?
I've come many times to the film festival, yes, and actually my university is sponsoring one of the film festival sessions this year as well. So yeah.
So we might be seeing some Oakland University students out at the Ann Arbor Film Festival too.
Definitely.
Yeah. So why don't you tell me a little bit about your career path and what kind of led you to filmmaking?
I didn't start in filmmaking. I started in classics and archaeology, which is where the mythology in my films comes from. And I went through into graduate school and before I decided that that wasn't the path I wanted to take, and I wanted to go into making art. And I went back to school in photography, learned about filmmaking, and just went with that. And I went to Cranbrook Academy of Art for graduate school and then stayed in the area when I got a job at Oakland University.
It's interesting how, well, I think it's a testament to what it's like going to college. So you went to college and you're like, this is what I'm going to do. And then you were like done with your degree and you're like, no, this is not it at all.
Yeah.
Because I kind of had a similar experience myself, and I just ended up getting 2 bachelor's degrees at the time.
Yes, yeah, and that's what I did, and I had wanted archaeology since I was in 5th grade, but now it's just in my films instead of.
Well, yeah, and it's interesting how that works out too. That it's still a part of you. I mean, you did all of that, and it's still influencing your work today that you're doing.
Yes.
So you mentioned you had those 2 films in the festival back in 81 and 83.
Yes.
So why don't you tell me about each one of those films a little bit more about it?
Okay. I Always Squint in the Sun was a film about a woman who was hiding photographs around her apartment and under rugs and things, but the photographs were black. There was nothing in the photographs, so you would see her looking at them and saving them and putting them away, and then the soundtrack was people talking about what they would see in the photographs. Her hair blew over her eyes, or the title, I Always Squint in the Sun, that sort of thing. So it was the difference between the soundtrack and what you could actually see. And then Bedroom Dinner Slides was a kind of unusual fractured narrative of people in a house showing slides, which of course people don't show slides anymore. But it was obscure, I would say, kind of a story that went back on itself and didn't really give you a significant conclusion. It was kind of ambiguous.
Do you find that throughout your filmmaking career that you've always kind of leaned towards being an experimental filmmaker?
Definitely. I think at the beginning, it was hard for me because I came out of still photography. So my first film, the camera didn't move. I was filming a sculpture which didn't move, and my film teacher had to say to me, this is motion pictures, you can move around, you can do things. But I was very interested in how still images can still have a power within a film, and I became very interested in editing and how editing can really impact the kind of story you're telling, but I wasn't ever interested in telling a story that was straight down the line narrative. So.
All right, we're going to take a look at your film then.
Okay.
Now that we've learned a little about Andrea's career and experience with the Ann Arbor Film Festival, let's watch her film, Penelope's Odyssey. Well, Andrea, thank you for sharing your film with us. Can you kind of explain to me the concept that you had behind the film?
Well, I had been going back through things like rereading the Odyssey, and I had been reading actually feminist scholars who had been rethinking Penelope's position in the Odyssey. And while the Odyssey is mostly certainly about Odysseus' adventures, really what I was intrigued with was going back and realizing how equal they were in their marriage and how that made a difference when he came home after 20 years, that they still had some sense of each other that was so strong that the 20 years didn't matter. And the fact that at the end of that, he waited for her to make the decision whether she would take him back. And you don't usually think of that in ancient Greece, that there would be this equivalency, an equality of mind and spirit is what they called. And so that sparked this film, and I wanted to tell Penelope's side of it, how he had said, you're in charge while I'm gone. And then go through her experience of the 20 years in a shortened form, of course. And that we would have some of the sense of the kind of struggle that she had, and yet the strength she had at the same time. So
it was definitely, for me, it was like the feminist take on the Odyssey.
Oh, yes. Yes. And I think it's important because now you see, if you see Troy with Brad Pitt or other films like that, it's they've turned them into adventure films and big budget extravaganzas, which they always have been.
Yeah.
But there are these other sides of the story that I think short experimental art films are a good avenue for trying to work with those.
Well, and when I watched it for the first time, I was, it made me think about the Odyssey again. And then I'm like, I kind of got to read a little bit because I need a refresher. It's been so long since I've even thought about the Odyssey.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing, too, is that you actually shot this in Greece.
Yes, I did. Yes. And some of it was, I wasn't on the west side of Greece, which is where Penelope would have been, but I was out on the islands and in Nafplion and was trying to get images that connected for me to the past, because some of the landscape there and the sea and the mountains, they're exactly the same ones that the Greeks looked at thousands of years ago. And so there's something about the power of the land there that really connects me back to the people.
Yeah, well, and another thing is that this was not a film that was even in a thought in your mind when you were on this trip. Greece is just kind of a place that you love and visit. And
yes, and so I just shot a lot of film everywhere I went, and I have a sense of the kinds of images I like to get. But I have a whole archive of film that I just shot over many years, and I shot this 8 years before I even started editing it or thought of this particular film. And which meant that not everything that I wanted in the film did I have out of my work. So I did shoot some of it here, but the majority was in Greece.
So tell me kind of the process that you went through with it. Were you like, okay, I have this stuff I shot 8 years ago. What am I going to do with it? Or
yes, I'm always thinking about that. I get very familiar with what I have, and I watch it over and over again. And then with this, because I knew I wanted to structure it in these year segments, and each one would be a different emotional experience of that year for Penelope, I would look for images that I thought would fit the changing emotions that she was having, so that the more domestic ones in the home, in smaller spaces, those felt like the earlier years, and the way that the sea and the feel of the wind, particularly there is pretty amazing, and that could connect to Odysseus being blown around on the sea, and then her own emotional experience. So I would just go back and forth with what quote I was going to use for that particular section, and then what images did I feel matched that.
Well, and so you mentioned how you break it up, the film up into like these years. So how was that decided? Like you did 1, 5, 10, 15?
Originally, I thought I was going to do every year. And I just started picking out some years that I thought I knew I wanted to work with, and they don't actually match up to the Odyssey in any way. But I felt that that was stretching it out, that to give myself this rule that I needed to do one a year wasn't really what I wanted to do. I wanted shorts, they're each like a little short film in each year. And so I felt I needed more at the end as things intensified.
Yeah.
But almost as if those years passing were pretty quick at the beginning. So 1, 5, 10, and then all of a sudden, it's 18, 19, and then 2 for 20, so that it was part of the process. The films changed as I went.
Which I feel like is the way it should be, too. You don't want to stick with this one idea as you need to evolve with the film as it's going. Well, and another thing that stuck out to me, and I think it was really at the beginning a lot, is when you have these images of like nature and this beauty of nature, and then these more like man-made images where she's rubbing her hands on like the bedding and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I thought it was important to give the sense both of her, the constriction of her life in the home, the bed as her connection to Odysseus, and yet the same thing is in Greece, the land and the sea and being outside, they're so much a part of how you live that those were also, they were a comfort for her, and they were also nature that was conspiring against her. So that's kind of the combination I was going for.
Yeah. Do you have personally a part of the film that really sticks out for you?
The part where she's pushing against the wall over and over again, and I repeat that and enlarges and gets smaller. The idea of having, that was when the Phantom comes to see her and says, you push back against those immeasurable fears. And that to me was probably the most emotionally significant to me. And then the ending with where the images are slightly out of focus, and I just like how that looks.
Yeah. So we're just about out of time, but if you could tell people maybe why they should get involved with the Ann Arbor Film Festival.
Oh, the film festival is so wonderful. You get such a chance to see an amazing range of films that you don't get a chance to see otherwise. And just the surprise of it, you go to one of the films in competition and you don't know what is there, and then sometimes the filmmaker will be there and you can talk to them, and there are just so many people there who are excited about film, and it's a wonderful experience. It just feels great.
All right, well, thank you, Andrea.
Okay, thank you, Dana.
For more on this and other CTN series online, visit a2gov.org/CTN. I'm Dana Denhoff for Let's Watch with the Ann Arbor Film Festival.